Amazing Waitress's touching act for lonely child reveals his father, a surprising billionaire. Emma wiped the counter at the diner, her mind racing with the familiar weight of bills and deadlines. Another afternoon shift loomed, and the thought of putting on the same bright smile felt more like a mask than genuine joy. As she poured coffee into chipped mugs at the corner table, she stole a glance at young Timmy, whose sorrowful gaze met a half-eaten piece of pie. The quiet boy sat alone, studying the walls as if they held the answers to his unspoken grief. The diner buzzed with energy, yet an unbearable isolation clung to him like a shadow. Her heart ached for him. He reminded her of her own son, Ben, who also often faced the world alone while she worked endless hours. What kind of mother had she become, slaving away at a job that barely kept food on the table? Questions punctured her thoughts like sharp thorns. Doubts and fears overtook her, wrestling for attention. Should she shrug off that familiar feeling of inadequacy? Should she reach out to Timmy, or focus entirely on her own struggling family? "Here you go, sweetheart," she said, forcing the joy into her voice as she approached Timmy's booth, her stomach churning with earlier worries. The warm chocolate chip cookie felt like a small act against the shadows that whispered doubts. She loved baking. In another life she imagined running her own bakery, cupcakes lined neatly behind glass displays, satisfied customers flocking to her cozy storefront. But dreams felt out of reach, almost cruel reminders of what lay destroyed in the wreckage of her current life. Timmy's eyes brightened momentarily as he picked up the cookie, and that fleeting happiness made all her inner turmoil fade. "Do you have dreams, Timmy?" Emma asked, her heart heavy with the question weighing her down. He hesitated before revealing, "I want to be a superhero, so my mom doesn't have to work all the time." His words stung. She understood that sadness too well, and the struggles of a single parent bore down on her chest. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As they exchanged moments of surprise and laughter, a warm bond began to form between them, turning the diner into a refuge, a space untouched by their realities. She listened as he spun tales of heroes and adventures, capturing both their imaginations, a shared life that felt more vivid and alive vicariously through their dreams. Yet the looming figure of Timmy's father, a billionaire tech mogul, cast a shadow so vast it chilled her resolve. A man with so much yet offering so little. Could the secrets Timmy held about his father's absence mesh into her ambitions? The more Emma thought about Timmy and the rumors swirling around his father's impending gala, the more conflicted she became. Standing at such a crossroads, she felt a turbulent tide of fear and desperation. The choice ahead felt treacherous. Should she protect the tender friendship blossoming in the cramped diner, or explore the possibility of stepping through the door into a world defined by wealth? As the strands of their connection drew tightly, Emma realized she was trapped, bound by affection for Timmy, yet yearning for more than a life running coffee and serving pie. Would she confront that gilded world, only to risk losing her position as a hopeful keeper of dreams for both Timmy and herself? The gala flickered like a distant lighthouse, illuminating paths both frightening and enticing. She had to decide. Should she venture beyond the shadows, or cling to the love she found within the confines of her daytime reality? Tension wrapped around her, clenching her throat as she hesitated. Would she step forward into a new chapter that could change everything, or let comfort breed complacency? The evening lights of the diner flickered as Emma finished her shift, and the familiar sounds of clattering dishes and murmured conversations gradually faded into a muffled silence. She glanced at the door, half expecting Timmy and his mother to walk in, but the emptiness settled around her like a cold embrace. Moments earlier, she had pictured their laughter mingling with the aroma of fresh coffee, a comforting routine that felt just out of reach. As she leaned against the counter, a wave of determination washed over her. She couldn't ignore the idea that had taken root in her mind. The gala. Timmy had mentioned it with a mix of excitement and wistfulness, a glimmer of hope that perhaps something momentous could stem from his father's world, a world that felt every bit as foreign to her as a distant planet. Her initial instinct was to shy away, to maintain the safety and simplicity of her life. Still, the thought of missing an opportunity, no matter how elusive, tugged at her heart. Part of her toyed with a plan. What if she attended, not just as an outsider, but as a participant? An urge to transform this swirling chaos of emotions into a structured and assertive decision began to build. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she landed on an acquaintance who often flitted between upscale events, someone who might have a connection to the gala. "Hey, Lucille," Emma said when the call connected, her voice laced with both hesitation and resolve. "I heard about the gala at the Anderson estate. Do you think you could help me get an invite?" Lucille's response was enthusiastic yet practical. She spoke of the importance of making connections and presenting oneself in a certain light to be heard in an elite crowd. The way she described the affluent world made Emma feel both curious and intimidated. "You'll need a captivating outfit, Emma, something that commands attention," Lucille said, her tone a mix of encouragement and subtle judgment. As they discussed the details, Emma could feel the hollow doubt creeping in. She glanced around the diner, where memories were woven into every corner. The long hours of shifts, her laughter with Timmy over shared stories, even the quiet moments of solitude. This was her world, and yet she felt the desire for something bigger break through the threshold of her comfort zone. Over the following days, her shifts were tinged with anticipation as she prepared for the gala. Emma researched what she needed, what to wear, how to network, and the faces she might encounter. Each late night at the diner took on a different hue as conversations with Timmy seeped into her resolve. She envisioned introducing herself to his father, speaking confidently, turning the tables of fate in her favor, not solely for her ambitions, but also for Timmy, for a better future. But as the hours ticked down to the event, uncertainty clawed at her resolve. The underlying question lingered in her mind. What type of world was she entering? Would those surrounded by wealth and privilege see her as an imposter, another struggling waitress hoping for a slice of their pie? On the night before the gala, Emma found herself standing in front of the mirror, clad in the beautiful dress Lucille had helped her select. She took a deep breath, combing through her thoughts. The reflection that stared back at her seemed foreign, yet tinged with possibility. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "I will step into that world, and I will not merely be an observer. I will be part of the story." With an unexpected rush of empowerment, she laid down her fears, vowing to confront whatever awaited her in that opulent space. But as her heart raced with newfound anticipation, a penetrating thought crept into her mind. Would she truly find what she needed in that lavish ballroom, or would she discover that the real treasure lay within the connection she cherished back in the diner? With dawn breaking, Emma's resolve deepened. She couldn't turn back now. The moment of decision had arrived. All she had to do was take that first step into the unknown. The gala night emerged cloaked in an ethereal glow, the kind that painted ambition on the faces of the elite. As Emma walked through the grand estate's doors, a whirlwind of emotion hit her. Nervous excitement mingled with a deep sense of isolation. This world was both mesmerizing and overwhelming, and the echoes of her past felt surprisingly loud amid the opulence. She had spent hours preparing herself mentally and physically, crafting a persona that would stand out yet remain authentic. As she navigated through the crowd, her pulse quickened with every glance that fell upon her, a mix of interest and curiosity from those she sought to impress. The lavish setting, adorned with glittering chandeliers and sophisticated music, felt like a dream, but it also heightened the insistent whisper of self-doubt. Emma reminded herself of her purpose. This wasn't just about the grandeur, it was about unlocking doors for Timmy and herself. She had rehearsed her introduction, reviewed potential conversations, and even envisioned the positive interactions that could unfold. Yet each interaction presented a new challenge. When she approached a group engaged in animated discussion, she struggled to join in, feeling like an interloper in a foreign land. "Can I help you?" A woman interrupted her thoughts, her perfectly manicured hands resting on her hips. "I'm Emma," she stammered, forcing her voice to remain steady. "I'm a friend of Timmy's." The dismissal in the woman's expression was palpable, and Emma could almost hear the judgment. She felt the walls of the room pressing in as insecurity tugged at her resolve. Why had she thought she could step into this realm, where small talk revolved around exotic vacations and business deals? As she moved away from the aloof group, she chided herself. Perhaps this was not where she was meant to be. A moment of clarity washed over her as she remembered the simple, laughter-filled moments at the diner with Timmy. Those connections mattered more than the glittering facade surrounding her. Finding a quieter corner, she took a deep breath, grounding herself. She recalled Lucille's advice about posturing and expectations, and something clicked. Why not come at this gala the way she would at the diner? Resolved, Emma shifted her approach. Instead of trying to penetrate elite conversations, she began to engage with the peripheral attendees, those who, like her, seemed somewhat out of place. A waiter carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres caught her eye. She smiled and introduced herself. "How's the night treating you?" To her surprise, the young man's face lit up as they shared stories about their experiences in the hospitality industry. It was refreshing and real, a balm for her nerves. She felt herself relax as they exchanged laughs over the absurdities of highbrow expectations and miscommunications. Then she noticed a familiar face coming toward her, Timmy's mother, Jenna. Almost instinctively, she straightened her back. This connection felt significant, a lifeline to ground herself here. The sense of belonging solidified when Jenna introduced her to other attendees, allowing Emma to articulate her passion for helping children in need. It was a pivot point. She suddenly felt validated, no longer a solitary figure lost in the crowd. Now something had shifted. She was actively engaging. Each earnest conversation revealed snippets of hope, alliances forming where she least expected. Emma realized that finding her voice among the elite didn't mean changing who she was. It meant harnessing her unique perspective and embracing her experiences. Yet just as she relished this newfound confidence, the crowd parted for a moment, and her breath caught in her throat as she locked eyes with a strikingly familiar figure across the room. Timmy's father, dressed impeccably, surrounded by intrigue yet looking utterly detached. Compelled by a mix of fear and determination, she understood it was time to confront the man behind Timmy's dreams. What could she possibly say to him that would convey the urgency of their situation? Emma steadied her breath, focusing on the mission that had drawn her into this world. She had found her resolve. Now she needed to execute the plan. As she moved toward him, the weight of her decision grounded her. This was her moment. She was no longer an outsider. In this reckless thrust of determination, she set aside doubts, aiming to engage the one man who could change everything for Timmy and herself. Would she seize the opportunity? As she approached, the tension mounted and a question loomed. Would her courage be enough to spark the compassion needed to reshape their destinies? Emma's heart raced as she wove through the sea of guests, each step feeling heavier than the last. The area around Timmy's father seemed to pulsate with intrigue, a stark contrast to the quiet moments she'd shared with more genuine people from the margins. It was a different realm of significance, and there was no denying the weight of the responsibility that rested on her shoulders. Her gaze fixed on him. She reassessed her strategy. Previously, she had felt as though she was scrambling to forge connections, but now her mission was more focused. She envisioned how their paths had crossed and intertwined with Timmy's life. She could feel her posture shift. She stood taller, her resolve crystallizing. Timmy's father, a figure carved from ambition and wealth, remained engaged in insincere small talk, laughter bubbling around him like champagne. Emma couldn't shake the need to pierce that bubble and plant the seeds of urgency regarding his son. This isn't just about pleasantries, she thought, mentally rehearsing her words, feeling her voice strengthen with conviction. With each stride, she drew closer, narrowing the chaos of the gala into a singular focus. How can I articulate my plea? She wondered, grappling with the significance of her request. Finally, she was upon him. He turned, initially startled, but quickly masking it beneath a practiced smile. He extended a hand. "Hello, I'm Daniel," he said, the warmth of his voice lacking sincerity. "Emma," she replied, her hand firm in his grasp. "I'm a friend of Timmy's. We need to talk." His eyebrows knitted together slightly, assessing her with an expression that spoke volumes, curiosity mixed with reluctance. As he opened his mouth, likely to dismiss her, she pressed on, her voice strong. "It's about his future. He's facing challenges that could dramatically impact his life, and you have the ability to make a difference." Apprehension flickered in his eyes, but was quickly concealed by an amused smirk. "I appreciate your passion, but I'm not sure what you expect from me. Children have many challenges." "Timmy needs your support," she responded, her tone unwavering, the momentum of their conversation shifting slightly. "He adores you, and every child deserves an advocate, especially from their parents. He might not say it, but he carries the weight of your absence. That weight is growing heavier." A flicker of something, maybe guilt, passed over his face, but he expertly concealed it behind a facade of indifference. "Others have responsibilities too. Life is complicated," he countered, appearing more defensive than dismissive. Emma momentarily faltered, feeling the familiar churn of self-doubt crest at the edges of her resolve. Yet she recalled the weight of the conversations she had shared with Timmy, his small hands sketching dreams and fears. She couldn't allow them to drown in this moment. "Possibility doesn't have to be complicated," she asserted, her voice steady and louder than before, drawing some nearby guests' attention. "Timmy believes in you, and it's shameful to ignore that." His eyes shifted, visibly shaken by her raw honesty. He had clout, he had resources. She was not asking for charity, she was pleading for recognition, the kind of recognition only a father could give. As the words hung in the air, she felt a new kind of clarity wash over her. The situation was no longer merely an encounter with an elite figure. It was a confrontation of identity, legacy, and compassion. If she could expose his reluctance to provide support, perhaps a flicker of empathy would ignite, a connection not to be dismissed, not to be ignored. In that moment, she realized something profound about herself. She was more than a waitress striving for recognition. She had become a voice for the voiceless, a warrior for the children she cared about, rising against indifference. The silence stretched between them, tension thick enough to cut. Emma held his gaze, letting her determination speak for itself. "What will you choose, Daniel? Will you step up for Timmy?" At this pivotal moment, the room felt impossibly still, a weight of decision palpable in the air. As she awaited his response, a faint glimmer of realization sparked within her. Her courage could sway even the most indifferent. But just as she believed she had reached him, his phone buzzed insistently against the polished surface of the table beside them. The distraction pulled him momentarily away, and Emma sensed a change in momentum. Would he allow an opportunity to slip through his fingers? She could sense that this was just one of many challenges ahead. As he faced the screen and she awaited his next move, the question burned within her. Was this the moment that would redefine their paths, or would she once again confront the bitter truth of aloofness? The phone buzzed again, pulling Daniel's attention away. Emma felt a ripple of frustration surge within her, a fleeting instinct to reach out and shake him back to reality. Instead, she steeled herself, trying to contain her urgency. His eyes darted to the screen, and Emma noted how his shoulders stiffened subtly, the imperceptible signs of stress that betrayed the confident image he had cultivated over the years. She didn't want to let this moment falter. It was too crucial. "Give him a chance," she whispered internally, urging herself to stay focused. She reminded herself why she was here, her mission tethered to Timmy's well-being. Daniel's world was a cocktail of power and influence, and she would navigate it carefully, expertly. She took a step closer, invading the carefully maintained distance, injecting herself back into his line of sight as she spoke. "I know you're busy, but Timmy's future depends on your choice. This is important." He finally looked up, annoyance flickering in his dark eyes, but it was swiftly quelled by something else, perhaps the hint of recognition. "You don't know my life, Emma," he replied stiffly, attempting to reclaim control of the conversation. "I have my worries just like anyone else. The demands they place on me are impossible." "Is it about expectations?" she pressed, her voice unwavering yet compassionate. "Because Timmy has expectations too, and they're simple. He wants a father who cares, or at the very least a father who shows up." The way her words lingered in the air punctured the pompous bubble of the gala. Guests nearby had turned their attention, an unintended audience bearing witness to the confrontation. For a brief second, Emma reveled in the sensation of empowerment, but she also feared the judgment that might soon follow. Daniel shifted, the mask of nonchalance slipping momentarily. "You think you understand my struggles, the demands of my position? You're mistaken." For a heartbeat, Emma's mind raced. She could retreat, allow this to dissipate, or she could push forward. Pushing forward had become her mantra. She would not let this chance escape. She could see beneath his bravado an unsteady man grappling with his dual roles as a parent and an executive. "I know you're not just a businessman, you're a father," she countered, her voice grounded, unyielding. "Whatever weighs on you, only you can decide if this is your legacy. Timmy does not deserve to be left behind while you chase after something that feels empty." "Empty?" he echoed, a rise in his tone signaling agitation. "You think I don't care? I've built a life for him." "But what good is a life filled with material wealth if it's devoid of meaningful connection?" Emma stepped back slightly, her words wrapping around the tension like a vice. She could feel every gaze fixated on them, every ear tuned to their discourse. In the silent chaos, a revelation sparked within her. She was more than a mere participant in this world. She had the power to shift narratives, to influence lives, her determination surfacing even in the face of adversity. She recognized the potential in redirecting a billionaire's influence towards fostering a child's belief. "This isn't just about him, it's about you, Daniel. What kind of father will you choose to be?" The question sat heavy between them, and she watched as his demeanor shifted, vulnerability creeping in like a shadow on a bright day. His grip on the phone slackened, his gaze dropping, and for the first moment since their encounter began, she saw the flicker of doubt in his demeanor. Emma steadied her breath, her heart racing with the urgency of the moment. If she could channel his uncertainty into action, she could help create a pivotal shift in Timmy's life. Yet as she prepared for his response, she could feel the eyes of the crowd weighing down on her, drawing energy from her, and she knew she was walking a tightrope. Would they all witness a transformation, or would she witness the fracturing of hope in front of Timmy's father? Determined, she extended her hand hesitantly. "I believe in you, Daniel. Will you believe in Timmy?" The seconds stretched into eternity, and as she waited for his answer, a storm of uncertainty roiled within her. Had she reached him, or had she merely invited another layer of indifference? With the gala hovering between whispers and silence, the doubt burgeoned within her. What would happen next? Would they see a shift, or watch the chance slip through their fingers once again? Emma held her breath, her extended hand lingering in the air as Daniel's eyes bore into her. It felt like an eternity, each heartbeat amplifying the tension that thickened the atmosphere around them. Finally, Daniel's expression broke, the familiar mask of indifference crumbling away. "You don't understand what's at stake," he murmured, his voice unexpectedly strained. "My position, my responsibilities." "Your responsibilities to whom exactly?" Emma interjected sharply, her frustration bubbling up. "To a client, a board. You can redefine those priorities, Daniel. But Timmy, he's a little boy who just wants his dad. You have the power to change everything for him." She noticed the subtle shift in his posture, a slight droop of his shoulders, as if the weight of his dual existence was finally bearing down on him. This was a pivotal moment. Could she lead him from the edge of denial into the embrace of fatherhood? As she searched his expression, she saw layers of conflict beneath his facade. The unstoppable executive, the man who commanded respect in every room, was also a father caught in the undertow of his own choices. He was human after all, particularly now as the emotions scuttled across his face, uncertainty, fear, and a reluctant flicker of hope. "Daniel, you are at a crossroads. You can continue this path, but it seems so lonely. Look around you," she said, her voice softer, coaxing. "What are all these trappings worth if you miss what's real, what's fulfilling? The love of your child." The momentary silence held a gravity that even the gathered audience could feel. They watched as the invisible relationship between father and son writhed like a living thing. Every second of inaction carried the threat of another missed opportunity, another regret stacked on an already formidable pile. At last, he seemed to relent, that glimmer of vulnerability revealing itself again, just barely. "You think I can just change overnight?" "Change isn't about dramatic shifts. It's a process." Emma took a small step closer, her sincerity genuine. "You're not alone in this. Starting today, even if it's hard, you can show Timmy you care. You can call him. You can be there. Just take the first step." Suddenly, it felt as if she was no longer just standing against the backdrop of a lavish event, but rather advocating for a child's future from the very heart of a man torn between two worlds. Could her conviction resonate deeply enough to bridge that divide? Daniel seemed to wrestle with his thoughts, his silence cracking under the pressure of 1,000 possibilities. What if I fail him? The question resonated with Emma, stirring her own past fears, experiences that had pushed her to the fringes of despair. You will fail sometimes. We all do. But failing is just part of growth. It's your response to that failure that matters. What do you want your response to be? Without realizing it, Emma began to tread that delicate line of her own internal struggles, her own truth. She had emerged from the shadows of doubt, crafting her own identity from the shards of her past. Would Daniel do the same? She thought of Timmy, a lonely boy waiting for a father who may never arrive, and the pang of urgency surged once more within her. Daniel's hand twitched, inching toward his phone but hesitating once more, a flicker of determination igniting in his gaze. Emma saw that hesitance transformed, twisting into resolve. "What do I say?" he asked, the vulnerability in his voice raw, yet tinged with a hint of hope. Just be honest. Just be his father, Emma replied, her voice unwavering. With a faint nod, he finally lifted his phone, the weight of the moment tangible. As he began to type, Emma felt an inexplicable surge of pride and empathy. But just as she thought this might spiral into a new beginning, the gala lights dimmed dramatically, cutting through their intimate tableau. A voice boomed across the hall, announcing an unexpected special guest. Emma's gut twisted. Who could threaten this fragile progress? As she turned to see shadows moving toward them, her heart raced. Would the newcomer disrupt Daniel's potential transformation, or would they witness a revelation that would alter everything? As the announcement echoed through the hall, Emma felt the familiar knot of anxiety take hold in her stomach. The shadows drew closer, revealing a figure in an impeccable suit, a confident stride that commanded immediate attention. The glimmer of recognition sparked in the faces around her, some whispering with anticipation, others with reverential awe. Emma's heart sank. If Daniel's moment of vulnerability was cut short now, the path to redemption could close before it even began. It was Marcus, a prominent billionaire known for philanthropy, yet shrouded in controversy. His arrival was never just a spectacle. It roused suspicion regarding ulterior motives. Emma had known him to be a tactician, someone skilled in dismantling competitors by exploiting personal weaknesses. As he approached, the pulse of the room shifted again, charge replacing the hopeful hush that had momentarily settled. Daniel, caught between his phone and the encroaching tide of Marcus's presence, wore an expression of uncertain dismissal. Emma wondered what choices tinged with regret awaited him should he remain passive. Then Marcus's charismatic voice sliced through her thoughts. "Ah, Daniel, I thought I'd find you here." "Marcus," Daniel acknowledged quietly, his fingers momentarily frozen over the screen. The billionaire offered his trademark smirk, glancing toward Emma as if she were a mere footnote in the world he ruled. "I didn't know you'd become a champion for fathers trying to reclaim their children's love," he mused, mockingly assessing the weight of Daniel's decisions. "Is that a new role you're taking on?" Emma bristled at the condescension in Marcus's tone, realizing how much was at stake. The balance in Daniel's world hung like a thread. One careless word could lead him back into isolation. Steeling her resolve, she stepped forward, determined to assert the truth of the moment. "It's a role anyone can take on, especially those striving to redefine legacy," she interjected firmly, her voice strong enough to command attention. Marcus regarded her with amusement, unfazed. "And you believe it's so easy to just flip a switch?" He turned back to Daniel. "You have a position to uphold, responsibilities that extend beyond family. You don't understand. Being there for Timmy is the most important responsibility of all," Daniel replied, finding his voice, not entirely strong, but genuine. Emma sensed a shift. Even Marcus could not underestimate the power of a father's love when it was declared aloud. But Marcus simply shook his head, a predator sizing up his prey. "You want romantic notions? Family's overrated in the business world. Remember what motivates you. This is a chance at prestige, not sentimentality." With each word, Daniel was drawn deeper into the whirlwind of doubt, his resolve flickering. Emma knew she couldn't allow this self-doubt to resurface unchecked. "Daniel, this is your life. You can choose fulfillment over prestige. What future do you want?" The room held its breath, suspended in the tension of the moment. Daniel's eyes flicked between Emma and Marcus, calculations silently unfolding. As he opened his mouth to respond, the crowd shifted again at the sound of a crying child. It was Timmy. His small form moved through the throng, face wet with tears, searching for a familiar face in an unfamiliar crowd. A mother nearby cursed under her breath, as if even children had no place in such a calculated environment. The urgency of the situation rose within Emma, matching the chaotic rhythm of her heart. This was it, the moment that would challenge Daniel to either rise up or retreat into the shadows of his own making. Would he seize it or let it slip away? "Daniel," Emma pressed, urgency flooding her voice as she pointed toward Timmy. "Your choice is right in front of you. Will you let him believe you don't care?" The air shifted, the stakes elevated, as Daniel's conflict rumbled within him. The ghost of doubt constricted around his throat, yet the small boy's cries suddenly pierced him, resonating with painful clarity. As Daniel's gaze locked onto Timmy, a determination began to shape within him. But would he act before the moment faded? Emma could feel the tension tighten, the pivotal instant teetering dangerously on the edge of decision, pushing her own fears down in favor of his choices. Time stretched, the bystanders' whispers fading into the background. Daniel stood shoulder to shoulder with his past and future. Would he break free now, or let the shadows of his career entrap him? His hand trembled as he moved to set down the phone. It felt like a surreal blend of time and consequence. Emma braced herself for the answer she desperately hoped would come. Would he take the leap? The tension in the air was palpable as everyone's eyes were glued to Daniel. Time slowed around him. Each tick of the clock felt like an unrelenting question hanging over him. What mattered more, his career or his son? As he stood there, Timmy's small body cut through the crowd like a beacon, illuminating the darkness of Daniel's indecision. With each step that his son took, the weight of legacy and prestige dissolved in comparison to the small, desperate cries of a child looking for reassurance, for love. Daniel's breath hitched. He could see the boiling pit of resentment and guilt building at the heart of his career, how it had cast a shadow over the simple joys of fatherhood. Yet here was a chance. It hovered just within reach, like the mirage of an oasis in a parched desert. "Timmy!" The bittersweet name escaped his lips, initially laden with hesitation, but swelling with more intention as he took a step forward. Suddenly, the metallic click of his world, the calls of investors, the never-ending pressures began to lose their grip, fading into silence. Marcus's expression morphed into a tight mask of disdain. "Think carefully, Daniel," he warned, his voice dripping with contempt. "This is a pivotal moment for you. A moment everyone is watching. Do you want your legacy to be a father who abandoned his ambitions for fleeting affection?" But when Daniel looked into Timmy's eyes, he found an innocence that demanded sincerity, not exploitation. The boy's face was a mirror reflecting every moment Daniel had missed in his chase for success, every basketball game he had failed to attend, and every bedtime story left unread clawed at him. The guilt threatened to consume him. Stepping away from Marcus, the billionaire's jeering smirk fading into fog, Daniel's focus sharpened. With each footstep toward Timmy, he grasped the opportunity with both hands. This wasn't just about reclaiming a bond with his son. It was also a rebirth of his self-worth, a redefinition of his ambitions. "Dads are for love, not just work," he spoke softly, the echo of his own previous beliefs wavering, dismantling under the weight of truth. He reached for Timmy, enveloping him in a hug that spoke volumes, a silent promise that he would always choose family first. Emma felt a surge of warmth pulse through her as she watched this transformation unfold. It was as if Daniel was shedding the skin of his former self, allowing vulnerability to seep through the cracks. She wished for the moment to last forever, for Daniel to fully realize how much strength lay within standing tall for what mattered most. But even as the crowd began to murmur approvingly, she sensed Marcus lurking behind, ready to strike yet again. The repercussions of Daniel's newfound resolve boiled beneath the surface, and her heart raced at the thought of what would come next. "Look at this," Marcus snickered, his voice rising to a cutting edge. "You think you're a hero, Daniel, sacrificing your future for a hug? You have no idea what you're inviting in your life." As Daniel tightened his embrace, his eyes narrowed, defiance bubbling within him. This was more than a choice about fatherhood. It was the crucible in which he would redefine his very existence. "Maybe I'll figure it out as I go," he muttered, though the tremor in his resolve called to question whether he could handle Marcus head-on. Would he be able to sustain this new path, despite the threats surfacing from Marcus's intentions? Emma stepped forward, sensing Daniel's uncertainty. "You're not alone in this," she said firmly, as her loyalty coiled around his determination, ready to protect him from the impending storm. The air vibrated with anticipation, the need for confrontation almost electric. The stakes had shifted. With a child in his arms, Daniel was no longer just a victim of circumstance. He was ready to reclaim his narrative. As Timmy looked up at him, the face of a father embracing a new identity, Daniel felt the flicker of real power igniting inside of him. But would he be able to wield it against Marcus's intimidation? The moment of truth lay ahead, thickening the atmosphere with an undeniable urgency. Daniel would have to confront Marcus, but how prepared was he to dismantle the foundations of power that had kept him prisoner for so long? With Timmy watching, everything depended on the choices he would make next. Daniel held Timmy close, savoring the simplicity of his son's heartbeat against his chest. It felt like a shield against the swirling judgments of an audience he had so feverishly chased, as if the weight of every expectation was momentarily lifted. Yet the momentary reprieve came with a sharp edge. Marcus's condescending laughter still echoed in his mind, a reminder of the world that could easily consume him again. "Your legacy matters, Daniel," Marcus's voice taunted, slithering into his thoughts uninvited. The billionaire's power had always rested in his ability to challenge others' aspirations and weaken their resolve, particularly Daniel's. With every struggle, Daniel had subconsciously catered to the need for Marcus's approval. But today he stood at the crossroads of his own soul, balancing ambition against paternal love. "Can you really afford to walk away from all this?" Marcus's words loomed a few feet away, heavy with threat and insidiousness. Daniel's instincts screamed to prioritize self-preservation. Ambition had been his lifeblood for years, filling voids of uncertainty. But into this battle of wills, something shifted. Standing there, Timmy uncoiling the tension in his heart, he realized that it wasn't merely about choosing between two paths. It was a foray into rediscovering who he was beneath the layers of expectation. "Every decision I make now shapes who I'll be," he thought, the realization washing through him like a wave pushing against the shore of his fears. He let go of the toxic narrative that had controlled him, one woven from threads of comparison and fear. "Timmy, you and we'll figure this out," he murmured, kneeling to catch his son's gaze. "You'll always come first, no matter what." The words were simple but profound, cutting through the history of broken promises that had defined his fatherhood until now. It felt liberating. "Good," Timmy replied, his small hand gripping Daniel's tightly. The boy's trust bolstered Daniel's resolve, grounding him in what truly mattered. The moment was punctuated by the sudden appearance of a phone notification from the deep recesses of Daniel's blazer pocket. His heart raced as he pulled it out, glancing at the screen to find a message from Marcus. "Reconsider, my friend. This is your last chance," it read. The ultimatum felt like a noose tightening around his neck, but rather than panic setting in, clarity emerged. Perhaps Marcus had underestimated his capacity for change. Had he thought that Daniel would remain a puppet tied to the strings of his influence? The thought steadied his pulse even as the atmosphere crackled with tension. The stakes had definitely shifted, and they wouldn't shift back. Timmy's innocent face reminded him of the power of vulnerability. Every father needed to learn the difference between strength and defiance, ambition and purpose. "As much as I long to conquer, I must first conquer myself," he resolved, rising to his feet and holding Timmy securely. Emma stepped closer, catching his eye. "This is your moment, Daniel," she murmured, her support palpable. She had stood by as he'd crawled through the dark corners of professional despair. Now, she believed in the new Daniel, the one who recognized the true weight of legacy lay in love, not just success. The power players in his life had instilled fear, but now they faced a different version of him, one that understood that authenticity could be both fragile and powerful. "Timmy and I will be all right," Daniel asserted, searching Marcus's gaze defiantly. "Your threats don't scare me anymore." His heartbeat quickened, adrenaline coursing through him. He realized that confronting Marcus meant stepping willingly into the fire of uncertainty, a determination to reshape his identity as a father rather than a corporate slave. "Interesting, Daniel," Marcus replied, taking a step closer, the smirk veiling the simmering tension beneath. "I'm eager to see just how far you're willing to go." Emboldened by the love of his son, Daniel felt the spark of determination ignite into a flame, challenging himself to maintain this new path. Marcus's words felt dangerous, an uncharted confrontation behind the veil of corporate warfare. Little did he realize, this confrontation might reveal secrets even he was not prepared for. "Whatever's next," he breathed softly to Timmy, "we face it together." The choice loomed larger than life, unpredictable as it unfolded. Fresh threats awaited, echoes of Marcus simmering in the backdrop of their unearthing tides. The deeper truths of Daniel's career and personal identity were submerged, and the unveiling of those layers could shake everything to its core. What revelations awaited as they stood on the verge of this newfound journey? With Marcus lurking close, the test had only just begun. Emma stood still, absorbing the palpable tension that hung in the air as Daniel embraced his son. In that moment, she saw transformations not only in Daniel, but within herself. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of determination, hope, and self-discovery. She realized that this evening in the grand gala was not just a convoluted path toward riches and connections. It had been a catalyst pushing her beyond her struggles into a realm of complete empowerment. The spark ignited by her interactions with Timmy and Daniel had transformed her internally. The way she had navigated conversations in the face of daunting figures revealed her own confidence, her unique strength. Emma was no longer the timid waitress at the diner. She was an advocate, a voice ignited by the shared aspirations of a boy yearning for parental love. Each courageous step she had taken fused into a testament of her evolution. Watching Daniel assert his new commitment to his son sent a ripple of satisfaction through her. This was what she had aimed for, not just to change the landscape for Timmy, but to uplift herself in the process. The experience of standing up to Marcus, of galvanizing support for Timmy, had solidified her understanding that her worth did not hinge on how others perceived her. Feeling this global shift within herself, Emma gathered the resolve to stand beside Daniel as he confronted Marcus. This was no longer a fight for Timmy alone. It was a triad of futures intertwined. With each heartbeat, she recalled her previous insecurities, questions about her identity, her role as a mother, and her aspirations of owning a bakery. Gone were the days of questioning her place in the world. She had cemented every ledger of doubt with resolve. As Daniel faced Marcus with newfound defiance, Emma stepped forward, her presence a steady anchor beside him. "Your threats won't deflect from the truth," she spoke, her voice gaining momentum. "Timmy deserves to be heard and loved wholeheartedly." The crowd had transformed to spectators of redemption. Their faces mirrored varying degrees of awe and approval. Emma realized that standing together meant they were not just individually thriving, but paving a new narrative for both children and parents felt lost in their pursuits. Marcus stared at them, his expression laced with disbelief. "You think this is a game of sentiment? The world you're stepping into is ruthless." "Ruthlessness isn't strength. It's a flimsy mask for insecurity," Daniel countered, his eyes glinting with renewed purpose. Emma's heart swelled with pride, for in facing this delicate moment, He had not just taken a stand for himself, but allowed vulnerability to blossom, the kind of fragility that ultimately strengthens bond and purpose. Emma took another step forward, her spirits intertwining with Daniel's as they united. "We are not afraid of stepping into truth," she said firmly. "We are here for real commitments, not for the empty pursuit of prestige. If you wish to follow us, we welcome you. If not, we'll succeed without you." The air thrummed with a new understanding. This was a proclamation of existence against a storm of indifference, a declaration of love in a world filled with facades. Daniel's gaze shifted from Emma to Timmy, his small hands grasping, envisioning that father-son bond now set ablaze. "Tomorrow, I'll declare our commitment to each other publicly. The real legacy is rooted in family," he stated, turning back to Marcus, each word deepening his resolve. Marcus faltered, a flicker of the uncertainty piercing his facade. "You think a sentiment can underpin success?" he challenged, though the need to regain ground seeped into the challenge. "Success without integrity is nothing," Daniel asserted, gripping Timmy's shoulder. Emma felt a wave of completion wash over her. Here was Daniel, neither a placeholder nor a caricature of ambition, but a father redefining a legacy. A vulnerable moment remained suspended between them, thickened by the strength found within their choices. "This isn't just for Timmy," Emma added, turning toward Marcus with an indomitable spirit. "It's a turning point for all of us, redefining what it means to be truly successful." Slowly, Marcus's demeanor began to crack under the emotional weight of their confrontation. It was a sign of deep-seated conflict. The room held its breath, and Emma felt the transformation descend upon every person present. In that clarity, Daniel made a commitment that flowed freely, creating ripples mincing through the gala's schism. Emma had witnessed Daniel's journey, and her own alongside him, navigating the depths of despair and blossoming into unwavering strength. As they stood side by side, Emma recognized the depth of her transformation. The old longing for acknowledgement from others had dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of belonging. She had conquered her doubts, illustrated her advocacy, and cultivated relationships that bridged the gap between her past and future aspirations. With Timmy nestled closely in the comfort of his father's promise, Emma proclaimed, "Together, we'll build our dreams, one that celebrates our scars and triumphs." And in that moment, enveloped by the mingling sparks of ambition and connection, they saw a chance to weave their individual narratives into a collective success that would shift perceptions entirely. This was the moment Emma had waited for, the culmination of her journey. Daniel's transformation reflected her own. They unlocked a fortified passage that would reap rewards, not just in the world of affluence, but in the authenticity of existence. With renewed confidence, she pivoted around the room, scanning the faces of guests and witnesses, claiming her space. This was not the end, but a thrilling skyward trajectory. Suddenly, amidst the silence, a curvy woman approached, her elaborate jewelry glinting as she spoke. "You have ignited something real here tonight. I want to be part of it." As those words landed, Emma felt electrified. The world she had dared to step into now beckoned with possibilities, not just for herself, but for everyone intertwined in this moment of transformation. You need to subscribe now to embark on this journey of emotional storytelling, Emma urged the viewers, the urgency coursing through her voice. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm's heart. Every engagement feeds this narrative. Don't hesitate. Your voice matters. I invite you to comment your reactions and theories about where this journey leads next. How will their connections reshape their world? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformative conclusion. Those who understood the importance of growth truly felt the weight of their support. This was the moment to show your support. For each new voice added to the story crafted new destinies for any who dared dream. Don't wait even one more second to share. Be the catalyst for change across lives, so they might flourish as Emma and Daniel have.